We do begin with Dia de los Muertos here on Comunidad del Valle. With me on Comunidad del Valle is Tamara Alvarado. She is the head of the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza in San Jose. Welcome to the show, Tamara.
Thank you, Damian.
We kind of put together this altar amongst ourselves, and I'm going to have Tamara, because she's the expert on Dia de los Muertos, kind of go through what we have here. The water behind me here is not here because I'm drinking it. It's actually part of the tradition. Go ahead, before we talk about the School of Arts and Culture, tell us about what we have here so that when folks are watching the segments, they know what we're watching.
Sure. Well, right away, right here in the middle, we have a calaca. We have, of course, a skull, and it's highly decorated. There's actually two other ones right here, because right away we want to make sure that everybody knows that as Mexicanos in our community, we have fun with death. So that's one of the things. While Days of the Dead is a very solemn time, it's a time to remember those who have gone on. We also want to have a little fun, and so calaca is painted. There's beauty in death, right? Other elements that we have here, for example, are pictures. Excuse me. We have a couple pictures here. We have your dad. We have my dad. We have your wife's grandmother who has passed on. So these are the people who have passed on in our families. Altars are very personal. So you always bring the personal element of photography. We have flowers to celebrate. We have this element here. This here is called the poposhkomi. And this is actually where you'll see this a lot with Aztec dance. And this is where the copal, incense that you see burning, this is actually where it's held. So in Mexico, oftentimes you'll see in the graveyards, in the cemeteries, where people are actually burning the copal to honor their loved ones who have passed on.
Oh, it's fascinating. And again, the water, the idea behind, I do know this part, is, in fact, we're supposed to have some bread también, because the idea is during these traditions, your muertitos, those who've passed on, they'll come and visit your altar, and you want to have a sip of water for them and maybe some bread along their journey, wherever it is that their journey is taking them.
It's very typical to place things that they liked. So for example, maybe they had a little chocolatito or maybe a little bit of atole, some water, making sure that when they come and visit, there's food and there's water to drink. So the idea is that they're coming to visit us during these days, and we want to be hospitable, of course.
Now, talk to those people who might not understand the tradition, who might say, oh my God, this sounds very morbid.
Yes.
Talk to those people and kind of convince them that no, it's not. Here's a video of some celebrations across Latin America. Go ahead, Tamara.
So the idea really is, this is actually a tradition that's rooted in an ancient tradition. It's actually several thousands of years old. In the Aztec or Mexica tradition, that you'll see a little bit of that later on. It starts in late August, early September. This is actually a period of celebration of death, and it happens across, not only for humanity, but also across nature. So it's a reflection on that. So it's rooted in that we have to actually go back into the ground in order to have rebirth in the spring.
We saw the Aztec dancers. It goes back that far. It's a centuries-old tradition.
Centuries old. So of course, also in the Catholic tradition, it becomes part of, like, November 1st, it's actually Dia de los Inocentes. It's actually focused on children. Children who have died, and then the November 2nd, the more traditional day of All Souls Day.
All Souls Day.
Yes. Oh. So this is actually, I think, for our community, it's a way. For all communities, it's a way to actually take something that's very painful. It's painful to lose a parent, isn't
Absolutely.
it? So this is a way that we can actually celebrate and honor their legacy and their impact on our lives.
And it's even more fascinating from reading, because my family did not celebrate this tradition to this depth. In reading the fact that in Mexico, a lot of families, they'll go to the cemetery on Dia de los Muertos and they'll have a feast there at the plot of the person who they've lost. Again, some people who don't understand our tradition might think that sounds kind of morbid. No, it's not.
No, absolutely not. It's something to say, let's visit our loved ones who have passed on and bring some food and celebrate together. So there's multiple ways. It's something that a lot of families typically don't, even in Mexicanos, sometimes say, oh, well, I didn't celebrate it in that way. Maybe we just set up a picture and a few flowers. I've been to Michoacan during Day of the Dead, and it's a very different way of celebrating, but certain elements are the same. Food, the flowers, the incense. So there's a lot of things also across Latin America. In many countries, it's also celebrated. Not quite the same way as in Mexico and now here in the United States. but it's all a very beautiful tradition that all of us can actually enjoy.
Mary Andrade, who is with La Oferta Review, she's written several books on these traditions across Latin America. And you mentioned how the traditions do differ, so you might want to Google that or give them a call there in San Jose. But it sounds like it's one of those traditions I'm teaching, or we're teaching our kids to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. It sounds like that's how it's being passed on.
It's definitely something you can do at home. It doesn't take much. We all have pictures. We've all had people who have passed on. So put up a picture, get some flowers, maybe some cempasúchil, some marigolds. Those are available at this time. And some water, a little piece of bread. Any local panaderia worth their salt will have some muertos pan. So go and order yours and set that up and celebrate that with your children.
And I don't know if you know, because I don't know, at what date, at what point do you start taking down the altar? On the 3rd?
Ideally on the 3rd, on the 3rd or the 4th. But typically you start setting up the altars in these days.
So some of these altars, I think we may have seen some on the video, are more elaborate. I mean, this is kind of miniature compared to what a lot of families do, even in their own homes.
Oh, some altars are extremely elaborate, and especially when you look at some of even the local artists that are putting things together. For example, at Martin Luther King Jr. Library, the San Jose Multicultural Artists Guild, they put together some altars there that are actually already installed, and they are wonderful. They are beautiful and quite complex.
Oh, wow. The Mexican Heritage Plaza is where the School of Arts and Culture is located. They're having some fascinating events. We'll talk about all of those events in our next segment and other events happening throughout the South Bay. There is the web address for more information. Log on and find out more about Dia de los Muertos. We'll be back when we continue here on Comunidad del Valle. We're back here on Comunidad del Valle celebrating El Dia de los Muertos. Again, we have our own miniature altar here on this show. And then our next segments, we're going to be having Calpuli Tonaleca, some Aztec dancers perform. And then we're going to close it out with Los Mestizos de San Jose, of course, doing some danza in the tradition of Dia de los Muertos. A lot of events happening, not only at your venue, but throughout the South Bay. Where do we start?
Absolutely. Well, there are several that I wanted to actually highlight. And one that already happened, but I think is important to note, is the run of Macario that Teatro Visión had actually at the School of Arts and Culture. We're looking forward to that tradition happening again next year. So mark your calendars now for October of 2014.
And get your tickets early, I guess.
And get your tickets early.
Tell us about the turnout and kind of what the feedback
so
was.
Teatro Visión, congratulations to them. They saw approximately 2,700 patrons come and see this show. So Macario, of course, is based on the film, a classic Mexican film. You can actually see it on YouTube in its entirety. So if you didn't catch the play, get on YouTube, see it, get ready for next year. We also know that yesterday there was a festival at National Hispanic University. They're starting to have a tradition of a Dia de los Muertos event every year, so that's great. We also have La Última Parada happening at the School of Arts and Culture on November 2nd. So Última Parada means the last stop. That's our last stop, right? And this is going to be a great program put on by local artists, Barbara Diaz, matriarch of Mariachi Azteca, Maria Luisa Colmenares, and also Rick Moreno, whom I'm sure you know. He is a wonderful, wonderful artist that is also a master at papel picado. So you'll be seeing a lot of that type of work.
And I mean, what does this tell you about the rich cultura that we have? I mean, we celebrate Kwanzaa, we celebrate Dia de los Muertos. I mean, this area, if you're not fascinated by the melting pot that is the Bay Area.
I think that's one of our biggest assets as a community here in San Jose and in the South Bay and in the Bay Area, is that certainly we have our issues and our problems and our differences, but in terms of being around different cultures, there is a certain level of tolerance and actually celebration that I feel exists here that doesn't exist in other communities. There are many opportunities. All of these things that we've been talking about are open to all nations, all races, as I like to say.
And I mean, color, I would imagine it has a lot to do with it. Look at how colorful this altar looks. We showed you the video, how colorful everything. I mean, look at these colors. That just gives the message of vibrancy. And even though we're talking about Day of the Dead, it looks alive. It looks very festive.
It is, you know, and in death there is life, right? That's one of those common things that you start hearing around Day of the Dead. And it's important to celebrate, to help us understand that, you know, there's a lot of focus in mainstream media on live, 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 live. We've got to look younger. We've got to look better. Where's my Botox? That kind of thing. And there's to say, you know, this is part of the cycle. We are all going to die. so we might as well start celebrating right now.
We're going to have Calpuli Tonaleke in our next segment, but they're also performing throughout
Yes,
these
so
festivities.
thank you for bringing that up. Excuse me. Calpuli Tonaleke will also host its annual Day of the Dead ceremony and celebration on the corner of Story and King in the parking lot of Mi Pueblo. And it's really interesting that it's out there in a parking lot. And I think that's important because it really reaches a community where they're at, where you're going shopping. So it's something that's open to all communities to come and see. A pretty elaborate, large momosli altar will be built. And so the public is also, if they'd like to come early, they can come also and bring a picture perhaps of one of their loved ones who've passed on. So you can participate in this as well.
Oh, very nice. Let me segue into the School of Arts and Culture because for a long time, a lot of community folks were worried about the future of the Mexican Heritage Plaza. Millions of dollars spent to build it in city funds, and then it sat there with not very much vibrancy. You came in, you and your group, and you've studied it. You have a business plan, a master plan, and you've changed it. Now you have the School of Arts and Culture. My kids did summer camp, their cultural summer camp. Give us an update on the School of Arts and Culture.
Sure. Well, it is indeed a $32 million investment that primarily came from the then redevelopment agency of the city of San Jose. So this is an important investment on the east side of San Jose for the entire city, of course, and actually now drawing in people from the entire Bay Area. So having said that, the biggest update that I can bring to you is that the City Council about a month ago approved a 15-year agreement with the School of Arts and Culture at MHP with our nonprofit. So that tells you that the community and the City Council, the city, they have made another significant investment. They believe in the vision. They believe in the business plan that came from the community. This wasn't some business plan that we wrote after we opened up shop. It came from the community, and this is something that has been approved. It has been a tremendous opportunity for us to be in service to the community in this way.
And what do you promise that community during those 15 years that you have the keys to that
To
place?
remain an active and vibrant space, to always have a culture of yes. And what that means is that when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to take a class, okay, here's the information. Hey, I'm a theater group and I'd like to present our production here. Okay, let's sit down and figure out, where does this fit? Does this fit in our community engagement portfolio? Does this fit with our market rate rentals? So it's a little specific, right? But this is how we're more sustainable. This is how so for example, Teatro Visión, they're part of our community engagement portfolio. They have put other things on the table besides money to be able to reciprocate that relationship, what we're doing with them, reducing prices for them to use the space. They actually have been able to teach classes as well in service.
And you have year-round programming. I mentioned the summer camp. My older daughter is taking guitar classes right now at the school.
So we have summer day camps that are 2 weeks long each, and these are fantastic. It's always a lot of fun. But this is not glue, glitter, and paste. You know what I mean?
I saw
this
that.
is high level, high quality, qualified teaching artists that are all fingerprinted and background checked. I like to say this is not glue, glitter, and paste because we are trying to also teach critical thinking skills. How do you work in a group? These are all the skills that we need now, right? When you're looking at getting a job, you need to know how to do those things. So of course it is art for art's sake, but at the same time, it's about saying what skills are these children leaving with by the end of these 2 weeks, or in a 10-week session, taking guitar.
That's beautiful. No, it really is. Pick up your calendar if you don't mind, because you can actually go over to the plaza and pick up a calendar like this on all the festive events, starting with Dia de los Muertos going on through Navidad in Mexico, correct?
Right. So we produced a little calendar, put this together with Cultura, marketing, and graphic design, and it tells you a little bit about everything that's happening through the end of December. So everything from, traditional nutcracker that's being put on by San Jose Youth Ballet to Villa Navideña with El Ballet Folclórico de Carlos Moreno. Very exciting, a wonderful show. The altars that we'll have in the lobby, what have you, the Villa Navideña, which is open to the whole community. So our promise to the community is to say, this is going to be a vibrant cultural space in service to children primarily.
All right. Well, Tamara, thank you so much for coming and enlightening us and
Thank you.
educating a lot of us about Dia de los Muertos. Again, the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza in San Jose. You can log on for more information or stop by and pick up your calendar on all these events. We'll be back here on Comunidad del Valle with Calpuli Tonaleke. Stay with us.